Let's get going. You bringing up crap?
Yes.
All right, Austin, what are we doing this weekend?
Gonna try to let you kill a greenhead. Been 3 seasons finally getting on a veteran hunt, so shouldn't have too much pressure. Let's see. One of our buddies' sons ran it out of gas, and then since then it hadn't ran. So we're down to we're gonna use a Longtail this weekend. But dude, this is what I love. Like once you get down here, you're in the bottom. I mean, you're gonna wake up feet from where we're going hunting. I'm Austin Peak. We're at Martin Landing Duck Club. There's a group of 4 of us that have been hunting together in Arkansas. Lost a lease that we had out there, and we wanted to have a spot that was closer to home, and we just stumbled upon this place. It was some good fortune and luck, and once we saw it, we decided we had to have it. And then just been improving it and doing what we can little by little. Just a work in progress, but this is our little project. Having good times. Welcome.
This place is awesome, man. We've been talking about it for a few years trying to get out here, but life always got in the way, and now we're going to make it happen tomorrow. But appreciate you guys having me up, and this is pretty legit.
Yeah, it's our little slice of heaven out here in Northwest Tennessee.
Yeah. So remind me, how long have y'all been here?
3 years? Yeah. April of 22 is when so this is our 3rd season, and wrapping it up, but it's been great. Been a heck of a learning curve, unpredictable weather and conditions, and we just learn. Literally, you learn something every time you come down, and you cannot count on any condition to be the same any other given day. Like it's just
hour to hour.
Yeah, I mean it can literally vary that quick.
Now, are you guys keeping collectively a journal of sorts so that you guys can piece together the patterns?
Austin's been doing a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if this season might have got away from him.
Well, I got them in my phone. I gotta transcribe them in the physical journal. But yeah, no, the first season I took very tedious, just enormous amounts of notes. And then last season, just across the board was not as great. And I just got frustrated and was like, I'm just going to put down just like how many ducks we killed and what the conditions, like what the temperature was. This season I've kind of gone back to
the detailed report.
The detail. Yeah, the detail.
So last year, all you did was number of birds and temperature
and location, what hole we hunted and stuff like that. But yeah,
but last year was a crappy season across the state. It was like we were in a drought, so there really wasn't probably too much for you to document.
Well, I mean, the deal is like where we're at, there are hunting opportunities even in drought conditions, and so like that's something that we had to learn, right? And we had to adapt to do that, and so we had some decent hunts last year, but it was the volume of birds, and we mostly get mallards here. The mallards just weren't here last year, but thankfully we got weather up north this year, and we've had a successful year in the area, and so it's been fun.
Well, zoom out on the map a little bit. Kind of give the region. Obviously, we're not going to tell everybody exactly where we're at by any means, but tell everybody kind of the region and I guess the unique qualities that makes up the duck hunting in this area, because it's kind of a special region when it comes to waterfowl hunting when you kind of compare it to other areas.
Yeah, I mean, we're in West Tennessee.
I'd say Northwest Tennessee, about 25 miles from Mississippi.
Yeah, we're closer than that.
Closer than that?
Yeah. Northwest Tennessee.
Down in the swamps.
In the swamps,
Yeah.
in the West Tennessee swamps.
We down in the bottoms right
In
now.
the
That's
bottoms.
right. That's right.
I mean, you're gonna be sleeping in the swamp. Hear the gunshots?
Is that what goes on out here?
So this is all new electric that we've got put in. We lost that tree this season. We lost this tree. Gotta clean up some stuff, but this is it. The dog's first retrieves over here on the property.
Scout, there's Jorvik, there's Cash.
And then these are the guys, some labs that the previous owners.
So you've had it for 3 seasons now. Where did the idea even come from? I want to get to the bottom of this because you always hear people talking about buying a hunting camp with their buddies. It's kind of like a dream bucket list thing. You know, not everybody clearly, obviously goes through with it, but you guys did. So I want to know how you guys kind of came about forming the group, so to speak. But then also, like, how does one even go about finding the right property?
Yeah, well, we'll start with forming the group. I mean, we came together through dogs and met out training, and we all had a connection coming from like the same little map dot,
Yeah.
Gladeville, Tennessee. So all of us went to Mount Juliet and met through some dog training, and we had a lease, a duck lease, and we lost that, and it became we had to find something. We didn't have anywhere to go, and we were, you know, season had just ended. We found out our lease wasn't going to go through, and man, we went to work trying to find something.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do to start typing in like duck holes or duck properties in Tennessee? I mean, what was the process?
Well, it's a long, complicated process, but you know, for the most part, a lot of good hunting land. I mean, it's if it hits the market, I mean, honestly, it's tough to get. You know, you can be outbid, and you know, we just really dove into our contacts and tried to find people that we thought may be connected to the areas that we wanted to be in. And my incentive to get a little closer to home was because, you know, I just had a son that was born and needed something that was not a 5.5, hour drive, getting to Arkansas. And we had John and I and the other guys.
Arkansas was where the first lease was at. Okay.
Yeah. And then John and I and the other couple guys that we had this with, we had some good public land hunts like out here and seen the opportunity in the general area. And we were like, I mean, let's, focus on this area and see if we could find something. And looked at several properties and talked to several people. And then this one just ended up kind of just coming together, and we decided to do it. And it ended up that, the group of guys that we got, and, it's something that, like you said, everybody dreams about, talks about, and we just decided to do it, and we have talked about this, and I have expressed this to all the guys that's, on the club with me. I don't think we could have gotten a better group to finalize and do this with. None of it's easy. And there are, decisions that you have to make and things that we've had to do since we purchased it that if you maybe had somebody else in the group wouldn't have gone how it ended up going, it wouldn't have been as easy or wouldn't have been as such a collaborative effort. But I mean, I got John to thank and the other guys that, I mean, they make it fun. and it truly is a collective thing.
Yeah, we're very diverse, and everyone has their strengths, and that's what it's taken.
Because there's 4 of y'all total, or
Yeah.
5?
Four.
Four. And I mean, man, you'd like to think that you just pull a group of like-minded individuals. We all like duck hunting. You get 4 guys in the room. Like, surely we can make something come together. But we all know, we've all been part of groups to where you always have that one, for whatever reason, personality-wise, or just, 2 type A personalities in the wrong way, kind of hinders the whole group. And that's what was interesting. Austin, we've loosely, like, you kind of keep me loosely updated on what's going on out here, and it seems like every time I talk to you, like, some other headache is coming up, as any property ownership is gonna probably influence. But y'all always just kind of come through, and I'm always waiting for that call to where, like, all right, the drama finally happened, and so far, knock on wood, it hadn't happened with y'all.
No, what I think the bottom line is we've got a general idea of where we want this thing to head, and we all kind of have our different approaches and ideas on how to get it there. And like John said, each of us have our strengths and weaknesses and different things. And, Andre, he's one of our partners, and he's probably the most analytical person that I know, right? And so, like, usually when he comes up with an idea, it's always very thought out, and it's something that the presumption is I trust it, right? And then it's like, well, obviously you're going to do your own checks and balances on it, but bottom line is that everybody here, it's all well-intentioned, it's all very thought through, and we're all kind of going towards trying to develop it to make it the best it can be. So, I mean, yeah, you're going to have headaches because you're going to not agree on everything. I mean, we've had plenty of disagreements, but the deal is that everybody is working towards the common goal of trying to get this place as best as it can be. And honestly, as quickly as possible, but there's obvious restrictions on that. And, being realistic, we don't want to do anything too fast, but, that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about some of the headaches and the hurdles and the unforeseen, just challenges that you guys had to overcome. Because, again, property ownership, you think about it like, oh, we just need the property. And then after that, it's going to follow this ideal plan and go to perfection, and it never does. So what's been the headaches that have popped up on you guys? Unforeseen expenses?
I don't know. What do you
I mean, we've tried to do a lot out here. We tried to do it fast, but at the same time, we're learning. And as we're learning, we figure out, hey, we shouldn't do it this way. We should do it that way. So just taking that time and not just jumping in has probably been tough for us. And each time we come down, it's something else. Whether it's, critters in the levee, messing our levee up, or just mud in general, or getting down to the cabin.
Yeah.
I mean, trees falling. I mean, that's been a big deal.
Well, what are some of the main improvements that you guys are going on? Because, I mean, y'all have done a lot of work out here, from wells and food plots and all this stuff. So, like, when we're talking about taking an old duck camp and kind of making it your own and improving it, and that literally, by definition, is trying to make the property better and more conducive for your hunting. What's been the high level projects y'all have tackled?
I mean, really what we've done is just tried to revitalize what it was. I mean, the stuff that we've done is the infrastructure was already here, and a lot of it, we had to, fix some of the old issues and just bring this place back to life, and luckily, so this club was established. It was a hunting club before it was technically established in 1969, but we'll just say 1969 is when they formed it, and a group of guys came together, similar to us, a smaller group of guys, and based on my understanding, it was kind of a family place for them to come and take friends and their kids and just introduce them to the outdoors and hunt out here. And as those folks aged out or passed away, you know, there were things that with any property, it's just hard to upkeep, right? And so when we came in, I mean, that was the first hurdle, was like getting it to where it was, I mean, we're by no means there yet, but we're trying to breathe some life back into the camp and get it to where at least the vision that I had of this place was, you know, I think that we all kind of have a vision of what it was like back in the day, trying to get it to as, you know, close as that as possible, and improve it in areas too. So, I mean, you know, I mean, other than that, it's just doing just things here and there, keeping, you know, like we're talking about getting down here. I mean, just getting the access in and out. I mean, when you're in a bottom, all the water runs south, right? And so it's like you're constantly fighting that stuff.
I mean, literally the cabin is, I mean, I don't know what, 30, 40 yards from the swamp. I mean, there's not much space if the water raises too much high. Like when we talk about we're in the bottoms, we're in the bottom.
Yeah, that's one thing that I love about it, though. I mean, you wake up in here.
It's surprising that it's not flooded. I can't believe the water level doesn't get here. They knew what they were doing when they set it in this spot.
Yes,
they were observant. They know, hey, the water doesn't creep up that high.
As far as I know, it doesn't look like these floors have had water on it. So I don't know. We'll keep the boat in and we just put in right here.
This is why it's called Martin Landing. This is back when steamboats used to use this river. This was one of the major supply routes for this part of Northwest Tennessee. And so they would tie off there and get supplies in and out. And I also think that they would sell to local crops to local steamboat, or I guess the steamboat operators, for them to take on down the Mississippi. So this was a major corridor in the 1800s, and that's when those were likely put in for just shipping and transportation and supply. So pretty cool. It was called Martin Landing.
So when a bunch of dog guys come in and they have a camp, talk to me. How do you structure the dog rules? Whose dog is in the blind? Y'all have like one dog in the blind rule? Are y'all trading off? Like how do you guys kind of split that up? Because everybody wants to work their dogs. So how does that work?
Yeah, it is a thing. It has to be talked about. Yeah. And I think with us, we just try to be fair, and we know if one dog's been hunting, then it's probably the next dog's turn.
And I mean, honestly, based on the conditions, I can kind of pull my dogs out of it if let's say I know it's not going to get above freezing in a certain day. I mean, I run short hairs, and so it's like I'm not going to put them through that if I've got Jorvik, who's a beast in the ice that can do it, without
you have
a
couple draughts sitting there on the side. And there's no, just because they can and they will doesn't necessarily mean they should, right?
Yeah. Whether I vocalize that to John or not on why I'm like, hey, Jorvik can run today or not, like that's in the back of my mind. Like I'll look at the temp and then I'll look at everything, and I mean, there's been plenty of days that I'll run Scout in mid 30s, low 30s stuff, but if we've got other options, I mean, honestly, it's one of those deals where I'm like, if it's in the 20s and it's getting to the mid 30s, I'm like, let's just let Jorvik can handle this 100%,
Yeah.
and, but we all communicate and we all figure out who's running who and take turns. And it is kind of like John was saying, if one dog's been doing it and we've had some success, multiple days in a row, then it's kind of an unwritten thing where it's like another dog is going to get the chance, so.
Yeah. So we all kind of, Austin, you came from the Navda world. I'm curious, now that you have the opportunity to duck hunt as often as you have, and you get as many reps for cash and scout as you have, from the dog work over the years, perspective wise, like what are you handling? Are you sending on blinds, or are you literally just doing duck search? Like, hey man, just go find the duck and bring it back.
Dude, it is not complicated. Like, it's like most of the time, the training, this is part of my downfall on how I train and hunt anyways, is like, I don't honestly enforce all the training rules that I do when I'm actually hunting, right? So by the time that we get like in hunt number 2 or something, yeah, like he may break and he may go get stuff. And it's like, as long as it's not impeding the hunt or not making it like unsafe or something, then usually I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, I mean, he's going out and hopefully we're killing ducks that are in the hole, feet down, where he can go pick them up. But if he has to do duck searches, I mean, he can do duck searches, and you just send him on a dead fetch, and hopefully he finds it. And I mean, I think that's consistent with what we do, with what you do too. I mean, it's kind of,
it's natural for them.
I mean, I think that's the best way to put it. It's just all kind of like, you've done it enough now where it just seems like a natural thing when we're doing it that you don't even think about it. It's just like,
it does get sloppy at the end of season.
You got to church some things up after the season.
That's right.
It's fun though. That'll let you know you've had a fun season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's interesting because we were talking about this earlier before dinner about, a decade now. We kind of came together and started training dogs and whatnot. And upland was really kind of your first passion. That was your first driving force. And initially you didn't even want to go waterfowl hunting. I had to initially force you to. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, you're a waterfowler. Like, you're going to enjoy it. And then your buddy Matt finally took you out, and it's like, it's slowing you down since then has been the problem. Yeah. Talk to me about like how did we balance out waterfowl and upland? Because I know that you're still bit by that.
Practicality, as far as where we live and what opportunity is out there is how that shook out, right? We were talking about this before, earlier today. I love upland hunting just as much as I love waterfowling. I love it all. If I could grouse hunt every day, I would do that. But there's not grouse that are, well, they're, I guess people have told me there's grouse now. I've never actually moved to grouse in East Tennessee, but the point is that to have quality, hunting, upland hunting, it requires quite a bit of travel from where we live. And for waterfowling, you can get to it a whole lot quicker, and it's quality, in my opinion, quality waterfowling. And so it was the natural choice at that point. It's like, if I'm not going to be, I don't want to have to travel far. And if I can drive a few hours, couple hours, and have opportunity at some quality hunting, this just kind of made sense. So that's how it ended up.
Yeah, I think Austin's father and my father, they grew up, rabbit hunting, dove hunting, quail hunting. We had the areas to do that, but just at home, right out the back door. And just in the past 10 years, that's gone away, and that habitat's not there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really the best that we can kind of hope for in Middle Tennessee and really all of Tennessee is a good woodcock flight. And here in past seasons, they've been kind of spotty. Like, they're still coming through, but not nearly as reliable as what we could have counted on just 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't know if their flight's changing or if it's just been the crazy weather patterns. Who knows? Only time will tell on that. But
I've got to say that Jorvik's first point was on a woodcock on a place, and Austin and I were together.
And we moved quail on that
We moved
spot.
quail that day, and that is a neighborhood now. And that was only, 5 years ago?
I thought it was less than that.
Yeah,
No, it was 5. It was probably
About
5
4 or
years
5
ago.
years ago.
was that Mount Juliet?
That was Gladeville.
I mean, at least the past couple of years, I've done more waterfowling than I've done upland hunting, but I still sprinkle in some upland hunting to scratch that itch. But, you know, this is what we do on the weekends. We're weekend warriors. So we get it in when we can. Well, I still love upland. I mean, I still like upland probably just as much as I like waterfowl hunting. But the problem is that for quality upland hunting, you have to travel, and just realistically, I can't be doing that traveling. You know, I've got a small family, and I just can't be doing that every weekend. And so that's why we're here. Try to get something a lot closer to home, and something that I enjoy just as much. And so I really cannot rank one over the other. It's that I enjoy all of it, but this is the more, just the better opportunity closer to home.
What was y'all's process for the blinds? You know, you got your own private property. And so did you guys start looking at building y'all's own infrastructure in terms of blinds and access? Or were y'all really just kind of looking at what the general area had to offer, get the lay of the land before you figured out how to start constructing y'all's own blind setups?
I'd say we started with knowing that we didn't know what the heck we were doing.
One of the old owners of the property sold us this place, said it was his favorite spot. We haven't messed with it. We have a corner of this open swamp that I just freaking love right here. Used to be an old blind in this corner.
We needed something floating that we could move.
Yes.
And we all agreed on that. So then the construction of that did take place, something that was going to be able to be moved, because we didn't know where it was going to need to be.
And the construction was no small feat. First thing that we did once we decided we were doing a floating blind was getting a pontoon. We added some dock floats to it, and we framed it out. And I mean, it's 24 feet. It's spacious. You can hunt 8 out of it. You can move it anywhere that you want to on the property. And we're still learning, and we think we've got it in a good spot, but honestly, we're probably going to end up moving it again. I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things that we're not married to any spot that it's at on the property or has been on the property. And once we keep figuring this place out, it could move.
So is it just anchored down? You just pull anchor and move it, or is it a little bit bigger pain than that?
Oh, it's a pain because you're in flooded timber, and so to get it anywhere,
Right, just
Yeah.
the space to move it, yeah.
So, but it's on spud poles, you know, that hold it in place, just temporary. You know, I mean, I guess technically temporary. You know, deal and we'll tie it off just in case it's a flood and it comes off the spud poles so that it won't, you know, float off.
But the launch was the most interesting thing, and I missed out on the day of the launch, but getting that thing to the property was quite a chore out here.
Yeah. It was a big event. You know, we have such good, you know, local people that we've met here and that have been supportive of us, and you know, once they caught wind that we were going to be launching a 24-foot pond duck, you know, blind,
Attracted a crowd.
and it was a low water year that we were doing it, they were like, we got to come see this.
I think they all poured a drink and called their friends, and they came down for the launch.
And hey, we did it. And I'll tell you what, I think it actually worked out that it was low water, because it didn't take much water to float that blind, and we were able to literally walk that thing. I mean, we had the idea of pulling it with boats, had all the ropes and everything, had everybody lined up to do all this stuff. One of the other neighbors came out and brought his boat to help out. We ended up testing the depth of the water and just pushed
Walked it
it
out.
We walked it and everywhere that we wanted to go. And that was awesome. Because if the water had been up at all, and with at that time, well, we had a Longtail that we were using, which was not the best to move or pull things with, because just that rope gets caught in that thing. And anyways, it was just it worked out, but it was a spectacle and it was funny, and everyone had a good laugh. And so,
Well, let's talk about the boats right there, because you just talked about the longtail. Then earlier you were talking about why that's better than a mud motor, but then also when you have such fluctuations in water level, you kind of probably have to have numerous options, from everything from maybe a kayak and P-row all the way up to a freaking pontoon. But you also don't want to break the bank and just have crap rusting out here for no reason, not being used. So you don't want to go buy a boat that, you might use for one a season. So how do you go about finding the right setup that doesn't break the bank, but is versatile enough to handle what random conditions you might have out here?
Yeah, I mean,
you can go for that because you've been looking at places like crazy.
Well, it has taken us 3 years, because if you had to ask me last year, I would have told you one thing. And now coming through this season of high water, it's different. I'll tell you something different. So we've learned over the past 3 years, pretty much what we learned is you need more than one tool.
Equipment is key, and it is an unforgiving landscape. And if you do not have the correct equipment, you're either not going to go very far or you're going to break it.
Or it's going to be dangerous.
Well, that's just
or
duck
dangerous.
hunting in general, man. This is tough on gear.
The problem is that it takes experience to understand what you need. And, we're referred to as the jelly beans in the area, right? Which is an affectionate term to mean that we're just the village idiots that come in. And we're learning, out here. But I realistically, like, we're not from here, and it takes a long time to learn exactly what you need and how to do things here, right? Because it's such a different type of hunting than what most people are used to. And so the equipment, we think, hey, we're good with this, and until you get in the middle of it and you realize, this isn't the right tool for the job, you don't need to be running a river with a certain size boat. You don't need to be doing it with anything less than a certain horsepower, trying to hit, go up current. You don't need to be doing, some of, you can't get around in the bottoms some years with, well, you can't get around on an outboard. Tried that. That was what I had when we bought the property, and so we came down here in an outboard, and impeller got clogged within 30 minutes, of us having it down here.
I mean, we come from Lake, and the rice fields of Arkansas, and this is different. So it has taken a few years to learn it.
Well, describe the terrain. You talk about how the conditions are so kind of unique and different up here. What's different about it?
Well, the cypress and tupelo, that's what we have here, and it's just a swamp, and so that's quite different than anything we have in Middle Tennessee.
We killed a greenhead, and it was iced over real bad, and so we didn't have any dogs to pick up the ducks because we were worried about how thick the ice was. And one of the guys went over and picked up the greenhead, and when he picked it up, there was a gar right there, and so he retrieved both a gar and a greenhead in one cast, and so we deemed that the gar hole.
So like, talking about coming from Lake, you run outboards out there. If you like get a flooded field that you draw on a public blind or something, I mean, you're going to be able to, unless there is some exceptions to this, you're going to be able to just park your, regular 1648 with a 25 or whatever on the back of it, right at the edge of the river, wade to your blind. And it's honestly pretty simple. It's kind of like you could take a fishing boat out there and do that. Here, you can't do that. I mean, you've got conditions that are first off, you have a lot of duckweed that's in the swamp. That's the green stuff that you'll see on the top of the water. Under, the surface level of the water, it's dirty. You've got decomposed leaves, other things over years that have accumulated. That's why you can't run these standard outboards in addition to the, depth of the water. Now with the high water that we've got now, I mean, you can get away with it, but for the most part, having a Longtail, which is where it's a lawnmower engine that's got a shaft connected to it with a propeller on the back, like that is kind of the standard customary boat to get around out here, right? You can run a mud motor, and people have done it. It's fine. I mean, might be the next thing that we get, but the deal is that gives you some more versatility, especially if you go a little, higher up in horsepower to get around and run channels and things like that. But as far as I'm concerned, a Longtail is kind of like a four-wheel drive that can get you around in some rougher terrain.
It's like grouse hunting.
I mean, these Longtails, they're like having four-wheel drive, man. I mean, you just put it down and let it eat. You can typically get off cypress knees, get through some mud. I mean, you gotta have one. You can run a mud motor in here, but having the Longtail is kind of the custom for the area. That's usually what people run. And they're quieter usually, so anyhow, must have equipment for the swamp.
I mean, just in layman terms, you can move that boat around left to right, up and down using that long shaft, whereas the mud motor or surface drive, it's somewhat fixed, more like an outboard.
Your acceleration for that Longtail is literally like lifting it out of the water or having it like halfway in the water or totally in the water. That's kind of...
It's like if nobody's seen a Longtail, picture using a weed eater on the back of a John boat, and that's
right.
what you got, right? Like you got the long shaft, you got the little spinny doohickey, and it just shoots you down the channel.
Yeah.
And I mean, it worked. I mean, it got us around everywhere. There's a couple tight spots that getting in and out of some of these trees was fun.
And that's one of the things where a mud motor, like a surface drive, can get you around a little more, tighter turns, agile, things like that. But on the other hand, there's people that will say that we'll only run mud motors, or, that's what they typically run. But I think that a Longtail can get you around down here and do more for you to get through some of the thick buckbrush and other stuff that you need to. And, it's just a more economical thing usually. Yeah. So it does not drive like an outboard does, and a mud motor is more akin to that type setup.
Buckbrush is something that you, John, didn't mention on like just the makeup on what makes this terrain a little different. And I've heard some of the stories of some of the local hunters around here that seem to avoid sending their dogs in the buckbrush for whatever reason. I want you to talk on that, just because it's a pretty unique thing to where, I guess in the world that we come from, we're used to sending our dogs on a search and some crap that we can't get in and out of. That's, to me, the kind of the purpose of having a dog to do this stuff.
I mean, I think it's two things. One, it's a safety thing, just cause they can't get hung up in the buckbrush. Other thing is that dogs can get lost in the buckbrush. I mean, I've seen it that it happened this year, and I get it, again, hopefully if we're doing everything the right way, we kill the ducks and the decoys.
Right.
But when you see a dog go through the buckbrush chasing a cripple, it puts you on edge a little bit because you see the struggle and what could happen. So understand folks not wanting their pup to get out of sight, and then the losing thing that's happened.
Yeah. It's you'll see tomorrow, well, hopefully Nah, but if there is one that gets winged or something, and have to go through there. I mean, the buckbrush you can if it's thick enough. I mean, dogs can easily get caught up in that, and with these wide open swamps too, it does not take much for a winged duck to get out, and you get on a chase, and then that dog can finally get the duck and be way off from where the blind is or the trees that you're hunting at are, and so it can turn around a dog.
Now you still hunt out here primarily with your tracking collar, right?
Yes.
So if they get in the buckbrush, how range wise, what are we talking about? They may end up at, just ballpark it.
Well, I mean, it can be. It just depends the hole you're hunting and where you're at. I mean, you could shoot a duck and it sells and it's only 25 yards, but you're in buckbrush that's thick for hundreds of yards. That can happen. But I mean, as far as me experiencing something like that, I know of maybe twice when Scout got out in buckbrush that was like, he wasn't further than probably 75 yards or so. And again, the peace of mind of having the GPS collar, I mean, it's priceless, right? And so, like, I haven't worried about it because of that. I have experienced him getting hung up, not in buckbrush, but in some other vegetation before out here, and had to go help him like get released off of that. So I mean, all that's real stuff. I just have I guess a little more peace of mind knowing where he is at all times just because the GPS collar.
Yeah.
And you're still running GPS on yours too. Yeah.
I have to wonder if it's also because upland hunting, grouse hunting, woodcock hunting, you're used to not seeing your dog, whereas the average person down here, if all you do is duck hunt, you're used to always seeing your dog, right?
Yeah.
So, that's
you get
gotta
used to
help a
hunting
little
up in
bit.
the Northwoods with these dogs, and they're ranging out a
Right.
few hundred yards, and in the thickest stuff you've ever been in, and they're able to find their way back. They ought to be able to get it 200 or 300 yards in the buckbrush.
Right.
Yeah. I do think there's something to that. I think that what you just said, I think there is something to that because, I just kind of trust that the dog's going to find his way back.
Right.
And it'll happen hopefully soon, but over time it's going to happen, unless the dog's hung up on something. And that's the only thing that honestly freaks me out about it.
Yeah, that's right. Just last year, Austin and I were in a hole, and we didn't do so well. And I was not using the GPS collar.
I remember this.
I think it was accidentally not using the GPS collar. And
Like, do you leave it at home or not charge it or something?
left it at home, left it in the truck, didn't have it. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't have one, but I didn't have one. And the dog was in his place and had been there all morning long, and we had zero action, but someone about 300 yards away from us had all the action.
And we got to watch all of it.
Yeah, we got to see it for front row seats.
Well, we got to watch the mallards kind of not really look at us, but be like, oh, there's somebody hunting there, and then just dive down and get shot.
So the dog decided that he didn't want to hunt with us and wanted to hunt with where the ducks were going down.
Can you blame them?
So, but we had started to pick up decoys, and we were going to move our spots after a few hours of watching this go on. And it took a while. It was muddy hole. It was taking us a while to pick up the decoys that we had. And okay, we get them picked up and call the dog and look over there. He's gone.
None of us realized. There were
It
three
took
of
us
us
30
hunting.
minutes to pick him up. So he'd be gone, we don't know how long.
I mean, none of us realized it at all. And then right when we got done picking up the decoys, I mean, it was like the last decoy. And I think John realized, he's like, I wonder where Jorvik is. And then we're like, Jorvik? Couldn't find him. And then it wasn't long after that, he just came happily splashing back.
I mean, I don't think we had freaked out, but I was hitting the whistle. I was getting worried. And then you hear the splashing, sploosh, 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 and there he comes. So I don't know how long he was gone. Probably 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes.
Then we ran into the local guys that he evidently went and visited. And they were like, well, had this dog and I thought it was mine, and I looked over and it wasn't mine, and then next thing I know, he just took off and I guess came back to you guys. And we were like, yeah.
It would have been awesome if you just stole one of their ducks and brought it back to you.
Well, the wind was blowing. The way the wind was working, it was working straight from them to us. And my thought is he probably winded those ducks that they were shooting over there. They had ducks going down, and that wind was, we had a 10 or 12 mile an hour wind that was coming straight at us from that spot they were hunting. And I think he got a whiff of it and went that way.
And there was a lot of shots.
And the shots with them that fires them up.
Yeah. Heck, there's a lot of shots today, and it's just been youth day today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was, when we first got here, there was a lot of shots. Yeah. And they were close by too.
Mm.
So
you're going out there tomorrow. You're just calling them in for me and John tomorrow then.
I'm basically just driving the boat to get you to where you need to go. And then I told you that I would get you out here, and I want to make sure that I fulfill that promise. And so I'm making sure that you get to the spot that we believe is the most optimal for you to use your firearm tomorrow.
Well, now that you said that, we're gonna definitely get skunked, because you know my luck on trips, and especially waterfowl, man. What can go wrong will go wrong with me.
Yeah, there's a real possibility. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we've gotten skunked.
I so clean there for a
We're
while.
gonna try our best not to.
So I do find it interesting that both of you are sitting here pretending like, y'all haven't learned anything. I mean, obviously there's still a lot to learn. There's always something to learn here, but just today you've been trying to figure out where we're going to hunt tomorrow. And based on the conditions, the temperature, the wind, you're throwing out options. You guys have clearly picked up on some patterns and tendencies. So I don't care if it's this spot specific or just in general. Talk to me about duck hunting and picking the right spot and figuring out the right setup, the decoy setup. You guys were throwing out like, okay, do we take the Mojo? Do we take the Vortex? And I even had to set, this is how long I've been unplugged from waterfowl. I'm like, what the hell's a Vortex? But when you're looking at the conditions and you're trying to plan your waterfowl hunt and the right setup, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say we see these holes, and once you hunt them a few times, you find out, well, the ducks like to approach it from this way or that way. They don't like to approach it from another way. So that tells you where your wind needs to be coming from, the way that they'll land into the wind. So that's a big thing for us, that along with the sun. When the sun's going to hit your decoys or hit your mojos.
Where we're hunting, sun is optimal, right? And so it's like if you have sun, that greatly increases your chances in the woods, right? And so we're talking about options. I mean, a lot of duck hunting is trying to figure out what options you have available and playing the conditions right. If you have like a field option and it's raining, well, you're probably going to go to the field, right? That's not the best conditions for the woods. But if it's sunny and you want to hunt the woods, then your next step is, all right, what holes do you think are going to be good? And that's going to be based off of generally the wind. And like John was talking about, you can kind of, like, you can't guarantee that ducks are going to come from one certain way every time, right? But if you've hunted a hole a handful of times and you've seen how they approach it in a certain wind and they consistently kind of set up a certain way every time, that's you get enough experience to know, all right, wind's right for
At
X
least an
hole today.
educated guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure, like the basic stuff is if you've got a blind that faces south, you don't want a south wind because that means the ducks generally, lie into the wind, right? And so that means they'd be coming over your backs to set up, and you want them in your face. Right. And so tomorrow's going to be a south wind. We don't really want to set up in a blind or in a hole or where we have to set up facing south.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about the sun when you're hunting timber? Is it just visibility? When it's cloudy, do they actually like see into the timber a little bit better and maybe bust you? Is that maybe why we have concerns over flaring? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, I believe it's all by sight, and the shadows help.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you cook a breakfast sometimes in the sun, they smell it better and they'll come in.
But the other part is the water level. That's
Where I was headed next. Is Austin was talking about, well, when it's flooded, hunt here versus there. So how's the water level and fresh water change things?
So for what we've seen here is that if the water level's up, then the birds are further to the north from the areas that we're hunting. If it's lower water levels, then they're further south.
Yeah. It's so birds kind of chase that edge a little bit because it's new water opens up new foraging and food opportunities, right? And at least where we're hunting, the more water you have, that means the further north the water's going to be on the property. And what we've at least seen, the birds use that area more when it gets flooded.
Yeah, I think that's right. They chase that edge.
Yeah. And so other things, this whole thing, like we're a postage stamp, right? In the whole system out here, right? And so if you were to look at like an aerial of all the bottoms, and you can see kind of what the typical water level is, and it surprises me when I do this. Like, I could think that there's water that's usually on a piece of the bottoms that's just east of here. And then when you look at an aerial of it, you're like, that looks dry, but then if you go 400 yards west, it's got water on an aerial, right? And so like there's these areas that are in the bottoms that are slightly higher elevation that are only exposed, with certain water levels that I think attracts ducks during certain times. And then when low water conditions happen, I mean, it's really important to know what holds low water when there's no other water around, right?
Yeah.
Because those ducks are generally localized to that area. And it takes time to figure those things out, especially when you're dealing with bigger pieces of land.
Yeah.
Right.
So when the water is lower and it focuses the volumes into tighter spaces, I mean, obviously there's other contingencies such as hunting pressure. Just because the water's low, you still have the same amount of hunters all wanting to shoot ducks, right? So it's going to focus the hunters as well. But have you guys noticed if the water's lower, are they more apt to actually play ball and want to finish on y'all's spread as opposed to when the water's up and they just have exponentially more area that they can go to and they're just kind of cruising around like, oh, no, I've seen that mojo set up enough times. I'm not going down there.
So my thought on that is that when you've got more localized water, that leaves less options for the ducks to have previously explored. And so that is typically where they've already been hanging out before you are setting up in there to hunt, which makes them more prone to go back to those areas and finish because they're more comfortable with them, right? So like example, low water, and I'm just using this as like just an example that we've done. So low water year, opener, we know, like, let's say the ducks are in a certain area because it is a low water year. They're hanging out there because that's the only option or limited options that they've got. You're able to get in there and I mean, you're hunting them in the bedroom, basically. I mean, they're
Yeah.
coming back in to hang out, and I haven't experienced it enough to say on high water exactly like if they're harder to finish like that or not. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I would think that your logic makes sense, but I mean, I don't have enough experience to say like, yeah, it's harder to get them to do it right in high water because they've got more options to go hang out at another spot.
Yeah.
But Nick, you mentioned all the hunters wanting to be in that spot and low water levels, but that also introduces another thing is getting there and access to those spots. That becomes much harder. So if you can get in, you can get on them, but it definitely limits some hunters.
Yeah, I mean, some of the areas we drove around today, you're sitting there telling me that, we were knee, hip deep, and you're like, yeah, we were walking across this last year. That's how low the water was. You guys were walking around in Crocs.
I mean, no, I mean, I've literally walked from this cabin hundreds and hundreds of yards across this property in a drought before. And then now we are, in a high water year and it's
chest deep in most of it.
Yeah, you're not walking 30 yards.
Yeah.
Out the door here.
Yeah. I mean,
especially with leaky waders.
Yeah. You can't do it. So, but access is a good point because, you can wade in, you could, if you got to have, it's about equipment.
Have you guys been here? Have y'all started picking apart or noticing some pattern in terms of food sources? That's something with ducks and waterfowl I haven't been able to piece together very much beyond like the wood ducks on my place, loving the acorns and button brush. Besides that, like, I can't look at something and be like, ducks like that or don't. I mean, the staples that everybody talks about, especially the stuff that people plant. But in terms of the natural stuff out here, have y'all been able to hone in on that at all?
I'm not.
No.
And what's the crawls been telling us?
What'd you say? The crawls.
Yeah.
Well, let me. I was one thought I want to get out real quick is this is something that I've been trying to pick up on, but what I can generally tell you is that the ducks don't usually feed where we're at. Okay,
Yeah.
They're feeding at other places and coming here to loaf during the day. And so, they'll feed on duckweed and some of the other natural vegetation that I'm terrible at identifying and I need to do a better job at. But you will kill ducks here that have roosted at other places and eaten, private food plots, that people have had.
And that makes a little more sense to me, just, from my logic, thinking about it, to where you're talking about a number of layers of organic compost, essentially, when you're talking about leaves and them deteriorating. Like, there's really not that much vegetation for them to really like dig up and root around on the ground and whatnot. So I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, all right, they're just going to come and hang out here because they're in the trees, they're in the timber, they're feeling secure, they're just hanging out. But when it's time to actually go find food, they're probably going to vamp out and go find it elsewhere.
That's right. This is their loafing areas. Yeah.
They'll still eat some stuff around, but this is not their primary spot that they're going to feed.
I found really interesting today the food plot, the area that y'all have really put a lot of work on. You guys don't hunt it, y'all don't hunt near it. It's more treated as a sanctuary, and I think that's really interesting. Tell me more about that, the thought process behind it.
Yeah, I mean, sanctuary is important for ducks, right? You want ducks to feel safe on your property if you can. And so we've just made the decision that we are not hunting a certain area of our property. That's what we've done, and we're going to try to do that for a handful of years to hopefully provide some sanctuary and imprinting.
All right, so this is a levee that was here when we bought the place.
has traditionally been a field, and we just kind of revitalized it. This is our water control structure. That's one of the water control structures that we've got. And of course, we have beavers that we deal with. We constantly have to try to deter the rodents. Beavers on top of it. Oh, there he is. 3 of them. I don't ever really think it's going to be a roost spot there, because that's kind of going against the grain of what the bottoms are about. But I do think that it can provide, a spot where ducks know that it's safe to go, and they may traffic there, and we can pick some trafficking ducks up off of that. And that's really what this place is generally anyways. But if we can, we can try to, help that, then that's what we would do.
It's like you're just putting a rest area on their
Yeah.
on their interstate, so to speak.
Yeah. Isn't that the idea, John?
Yeah, rest area with some vending machines.
Because that was what was interesting, is we're talking about a field essentially is just planted corn.
Yeah.
And you're telling me about the wood ducks going in there and pretty much stealing all of it earlier this season. So, it's interesting that this is primarily, as you said earlier, a mallard spot. Like that's going to be predominantly what y'all experience.
Well,
but
there's
the wood ducks.
There's a lot. I mean, so just because the habitat, there's a ton of wood ducks down here. But yeah, the primary bag is generally mallards, gadwall, wood duck. But the wood duck, I mean, they're here thick. That's just caused the habitat.
Damn, son.
Swimmer. Cheers.
Now we just need to add some green.
Forgot my thermos today. Pretty sad about that.
Coming over.
Now, going back to the spreads and decisions and all that stuff, do y'all generally just randomly throw stuff out there? Do y'all come up with like a specific landing spot based on the wind and how you guys are facing? This is one of those topics that like duck hunters swear by specific setups, or they just throw birds out there, right? And they'll figure it out. What's the thought process?
I don't know who's right, who's wrong. Everybody's got their opinion of where the decoys need to be, but I think you got to keep the eyes off of you as part of it, and you got to give them a spot, and the wind's got to work for them there. So, and again, the sun, you want the sun hitting your decoys.
Yeah.
So there's a whole algorithm.
Because when you first started, that was pretty much all I had for you, right? Like I had
some stuff out.
I had like one or two calls to show you, and then I was like, "Look, man, they land into the wind. Give them a landing strip, and just hope they play ball."
So some other factors here, talking about sun on the decoys. You're factoring in where the sun's coming up, where the trees are, because that's going to provide shade. You might want to put decoys away from that tree line so that you can have, the decoys have sun earlier rather than later. If you don't have sun, you're probably not going to run mojos. We call them,
pump ducks or whatever where you got the little duck butt that'll move and create, some motion. We generally will run those, but yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of factors that go into what the setup's gonna look like, and the size of the hole that you're hunting is gonna really dictate what how many you put out and how you do it, right?
Do y'all concern yourselves at all with the glare of the paint on the decoys with the sun? Because again, each waterfowler is different on what they actually care about or not. You talk to some old waterfowler and they will literally like take brand new decoys and go rub them in the mud to take that sheen off of them or whatever. So, I mean, do y'all care about that at all?
No.
Oh man, I came down here one night. I showed up about 10 o'clock, and they had 300 decoys out there painting the back. So
that's true. White.
That's why I asked.
White.
paint them white.
Called them angel wings.
You were painting them white?
And I
It's a
call them
long
China
story.
ducks.
They so we ordered.
What was the thought? Y'all didn't think that they're not visible enough.
That's right. Because we were going to have some low light conditions, and we were like, man, we need to make these things pop a little better. And so I'm going to tell you what.
Did it work?
It worked.
That's
now,
all
when
that
John
matters.
hunted with them, he'll tell you they didn't work. But when we originally hunted with them, we were so proud of ourselves because we thought that we had just discovered something huge that no one had ever thought of, and so we used them. We killed ducks over them, and we were like, man, the angel wings just do it.
The angel wings.
They
I
bring
think
them
they
in.
matter. The species matter.
Yeah,
and
that is true.
You'll find that certain species will try to land on that species decoy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, what about mojos? Especially late season, man. People swear by the time they reach us down here, they've seen every kind of mojo spread that they can imagine by the time they get down here. So, some people will be like, by mid-December, I don't even put a mojo out.
Be flexible. Start them, turn them on when you think you might want them, and then turn them off if it's not working, and just be flexible.
Yeah. Every time you guys go out there to adjust the spread, the ducks show up and make you pissed off that you left the blind.
Now that is undefeated right there.
It never fails.
I think it's the movement and the noise and the water.
And they
It's
just
a little attractive.
want to come check it out.
Yeah.
So,
So you guys educated me on a vortex. So one of you, for the listeners listening to this that, like me, aren't familiar with the vortex, describe what a vortex is, and also what are some of the other tools of the trade that I may have missed out on this past decade since I've been kind of a plugged in, quote unquote, hardcore waterfowler.
Yeah. Well, the vortex is a stand that runs on a boat battery. It has 2 arms on it, and on those arms you place a mojo on each, and it spins 360. It replicates a duck coming in and lighting there on the water.
they got swimming ducks now,
Oh, yeah.
so I was talking about the pump ducks earlier. You know what that is, right? Where it's
The little ripple butts or whatever.
Well, it's not a ripple butt. It's a duck butt, and it's got a pump in it that kicks it back and comes in like it's, like a natural motion would do.
Oh, okay.
And then so it creates a ripple effect. Now, what you're talking about, the little shakers, you can still do that too. But that same motor so Higdon makes these things where they use that motor that the pump duck has. They put it on a swimming decoy where they'll put it under the bottom of the decoy, and then it will just push this decoy around like it's swimming, like in your spread, right? But dude, there's a ton of stuff. That's the thing about duck hunting is there are so many options, and you could get lost in all of them. I mean, there's duck tracks, stuff where you put out tracks that's electronics that these ducks are hooked up to, and they'll like move along like they're all swimming together, and then we just basically use your standard jerk rig and some mojos and some pump ducks and just a set of a couple dozen of flocked head decoys.
less is more group, or are we the guys that new hunters want to say shut the F up kind of guys?
You answer this.
I am a less is more kind of call, but I'm not a great caller either.
So, one of the things that I think is great about our group is that Matt is a scream at 'em caller, right? Like, and what's so good about it though is like I think when we get new people in the blind and we've hunted together enough with each other where we can like talk to each other about, hey, they're not liking it, we need to change up what we're doing. But the presumption is we're calling, like, unless we've been hunting them and we know that it's not working, right? The presumption is we're calling. And if we're all in the blind together, I was very hesitant to start calling, and you can remember when I didn't even know how to blow a duck call. And, Matt was like, dude, give it a shot. Just like blow the duck call. Let everybody have fun. Let's do this. And that's kind of the atmosphere that we all still have, but we all try to recognize what the ducks like and don't like, right? And so, like, good example is really last weekend, they weren't liking anything really, and then they started liking
A whistle.
a Drake whistle. And we usually never use a Drake whistle, right? But they liked the Drake whistle, and I'm talking not like oh, their wing beats changed there, they turned, whatever. I'm talking like wouldn't care about anything, and we hit Drake whistles, and they just
drop in,
just finished. And so, over time, you kind of figure out, okay, what are the tools in the toolbox that you can use, and when do we need to use them, and what the go-tos generally are. But presumption is we call a lot, but if it's not working, we change it as quick as we deem necessary. Don't you think that's it?
Yeah, I'm just usually the one that says, "Okay, let's."
Yeah.
So
John looks at us for a while, and he's like,
I remember he goes and he does his first duck hunt with Matt, and he comes back. He's like, I gotta learn how to call. And I remember going to his house and on the back porch showing him how to just do one, just rasp, and I showed him that, and then a decent feeder call, and then I'm tapped out, right? If it's not just to blow the whistle, like, I have not devoted myself. I immediately regretted showing him, and even I think I gave you like a spare duck call.
A little Primos.
Yeah, that's right, the one I learned on it. So I'm like, here, use this until you get your own decent call, right? And this dude for like the next 2 weeks would call me every day after work on the way home from work, and he would go to some local park or wherever the heck some ducks were at and just wail on these ducks with the duck call. And he'd be like, I gotta practice, man. This dude practiced on the duck call for months. And I just remember like, oh man, I wish I never gave him this duck call. But that's what it takes to learn. Is not only just keep practicing and figuring out what sounds good that you're causing, but going where ducks are and listening to them. And that's why I never really got good at it. I don't think I was around them enough to really pick up on the actual trends. But to your point, like, when it comes to calling, it's just like, if you actually want to become a decent caller, the only way to do that is to go use the call.
Yeah. It takes time, and I got a lot of windshield time with commuting to work. So
I remember.
Well, the practice has paid off.
Yeah. Well,
And he and Matt, Austin and Matt, they sound really well. Yeah.
It's taken a lot of practice, but and experimenting with what calls work for you and things like that.
Are you a double read or single read guy? Depends on if you're highballing or what. No,
I mean, I generally blow. So I have a JJ Lairs hybrid, and then just an old Echo XLT, and then those are single reads, and that's what I do. But It just depends, man. I mean, if the tone that you like, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. It's just every duck call produces a different type of sound, right? And it's about the instrument and how you learn how to use it, and if you like the way it sounds. There are some guys, like John had a buddy that came out the other day, and he had the same duck call that I had, but he sounded a lot better on it. And I was like, because I saw it on his lanyard, and I was like, "Is that a hybrid?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Dang."
He plays my instrument better than me.
I was like, "What reed do you have in that?" And I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is. And when you boil it down, it's some people have really figured it out, understand the pressure, understand how to work it, and it's always a work in progress, but time is the number one thing. It's just repetition and building up the just the consistency for the muscle memory and whatnot.
So, I mean, aside from not having to worry so much about the reeds freezing up on you while hunting, what are some of the other main benefits to do a single reed over a double? Like, I know supposedly I think you can get higher pitch with a single reed. Is that accurate?
Well, it's more of like it provides you more of a variance for once you start understanding how to present the air and like do different stuff. You just have more flexibility with that, and it's a double reed is traditionally like what people will say, hey, if you're starting out, do this, because
Right.
you usually can, sound like a duck pretty, easily by just, blowing air a certain way. And I'm not by any means an expert on any of this, but just from my own experience, I think that's true. I mean, it definitely, it doesn't give you like as much of you can, there's a lot less to screw up on a double reed. And now I'll still squeak a single reed too. I mean, or I will squeak a single reed. In a double reed, it's harder to do that, right? But like you just know what the capabilities are a little more varied on a single reed.
Yeah.
So
Ammo selection. What are we talking about? I know it varies based on which primary target. Out here, we already know it's mallards, but what are the thought process when it comes to ammo selection for waterfowl?
you're in the 20, right? Or are you using the 12?
No, I'm using the 12, but I have found my combo. The combo for me, and I was able to test a lot of different things out early season before season opened, and I have landed on a Boss shell with a Mueller choke, and it's a 3.5 12 gauge 3-inch 3.5 War Chief from Boss with a Mueller decoy choke, and man, it's really smacked them this year.
I either shoot 3-inch or 3.5-inch twos, but I typically this year I've got both, but I've been using my 3-inch more, and I do the heavy metals. I've always shot, well, not always, but the past few years I've shot heavy metals, and I don't know, man. I mean, I'm like kind of this thought process where it's like I need at least twos to kill mallards, and so that's why I do it. But obviously, that's not what you need, because I've watched this guy kill a bunch of mallards this year without them.
Yeah, well, you start using the bismuth and copper plated, so that changes things,
Yeah.
whether or not you're using
Yeah.
the two. And
The
yeah,
heavy
I would
metals
agree.
have a small percentage of bismuth in them, like on that lead portion. But the biggest thing is I patterned those a few years ago, and they gave me the best pattern, and I've just stuck with them and either shot 3s or 3.5 inches.
Honestly, I've heard that wind does not affect your shot, but I have experienced something quite different, and that number 2 heavy metal I've had much better success in high winds than I have with the Boss.
Yeah. What I used to shoot before they changed the shell was the Black Cloud. and I
I
shot
think
those.
we all did that.
Yeah, and then
There's a time that's all any waterfowler shot.
And it was the
and then
Because I remember when that first came out, I was shooting the heavy metal because this was when I was big into duck hunting when that Black Clouds first came out. And I remember I was working at Bass Pro in Memphis when that came out. And that was like, oh my God, that was a thing. That was when Duck Commander first came out and everybody wanted to be a waterfowl hunter. And that's when I decided I don't want to be a waterfowl hunter.
yeah, Duck Commander had the opposite effect on you.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. No, to be fair, they didn't have the effect on me. It was the people that
Everyone
they brought
else.
to the duck to the boat ramp that had the effect on me.
Yeah, but the Black Cloud used to be the thing,
Yeah.
and then they changed how they changed the wad in the shell, and it at least I didn't get as good a performance, and that's when I switched.
Have either one of y'all actually broken out the patterning plate to compare these, or just are we talking about just time in the blind?
No, I mean we patterned them. I patterned them probably 3 years ago I had shot heavy metals before I patterned them and liked how they shot, and then actually patterned the gun, a few years ago, and they performed better than the other stuff that I was.
Yeah, and
I've
I've patterned as well, but I will say that the pattern's one thing, but the effect on the flesh and it is something else too. So what the damage does.
The black zip tie up there.
Closing out, I want to go back to the dogs. You mentioned earlier that you'll heed to other dogs when it becomes temperature based, gets too cold or whatnot. With you predominantly waterfowling, as it's it'll break either way, whether it's upland or waterfowl, like you said earlier. Given the opportunity that you have here locally, especially now being an owner in something like this, waterfowl is your top priority. Are you thinking anything other than a short hair on the next dog, or are you still only short hair?
I'm still only short hair for now. I think that I'm not in the market for a dog for a while with 2 little kids right now. But short hair, I really like just the demeanor of them, and I intend to, not start, but do more upland hunting like I traditionally have, and plus if I've got this guy.
Yeah, I mean that's one good thing about always having a buddy in camp with the dog that you need. You don't have to necessarily go get that one. So
Yeah.
And I mean, John, I know you're just a dry guy. You just got a new pup, Isla. This is her first season. How has she been performing so far this year?
Man, she's done really well. She has surprised me, and she continues to improve. I'm very pleased with her, and she's going to be a heck of a duck dog. If we can get her to point, she's going to be a heck of a versatile dog because she's already got the tracking down.
We'll get her pointing.
So, yeah, but, I'm going to stick with the Drahts. I've got these 2, so I've got quite a few years before I'll be looking into another dog, but I, too, would love just that specific upland dog, and I think we've talked about it a little bit. If I had more time to spend up north in North Woods, then I may be looking at a different dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any particular breed you're leaning towards?
It'd be a setter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll hook you.
The
will.
grouse dog.
Yeah. Well, what's something I should have asked y'all? What's something I forgot? I guarantee you there was something we were supposed to talk about coming into
one
this.
thing that I talked to you about on the way up here that you're like, man, you should save this for the podcast.
See, I knew we forgot something.
was kind of my comparison of like this style of waterfowling to grouse hunting and just the type of, just in general, the type of hunting with us hunting mallards, like what it's like. And what I mean by that is, you know, I've done the grouse hunting. I love it. I still love it. They are considered for me to be the, you know, king of the uplands, right? And I've talked with John about this for other reasons too, but I feel like, you know, what the type of hunting that we're doing now, we mostly target mallards. I mean, the idea is when you get out here, you just hope to work a few groups of mallards every day, you know, and if you can do that, then that's a successful hunt. And if you can finish them, that's great. But it's like to me, like the mallard is the king of waterfowl, right? And so, especially in the kind of scenery that we're dealing with, I don't know, man. It just is like grouse hunting's one of the purest type of upland hunting that I've experienced in that type of, you know, habitat. You know, I love it, and I feel like I get that same feeling when I'm hunting this type of habitat for mallards here in Tennessee. And so, although one's upland and one's waterfowl, I get about the same enjoyment out of both, and there's just something special about both.
Yeah, same fulfillment out of them.
Yeah. What would you say, John? Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. And, you know, just hunting here, I'm a visual guy. And anytime I can sit down and just look out at the cypress and maybe you have a bald eagle come through your spread, it's just, you know, that's where I want to be. That's a successful hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool just driving around the swamp today, and we saw beavers and muskrats, and you know, I mean, it just before, not even on the boat, but just like driving into town to get dinner, you know,
Yeah.
past a fox, a big old swamp rabbit came out. And I mean, it just, me and Austin both like, man, just the bottoms, the river bottoms have so much life. A big old fat coon bigger than, you know, Rachel, we passed on the way here.
Yeah.
And you guys we do need to get you some houndsmen over here to clean up y'all's coons. Like, good Lord, they're everywhere. But, yeah, man, it's really neat. I'm glad that you guys found the home. I mean, I know a few years ago you guys were kind of breaking y'all's neck trying to figure out where you guys were going to go hunt, and I'm just glad you guys found a home, and it's as rewarding and as fulfilling as it has been for you guys so far. And I just look forward to the next couple of years kind of seeing what you guys make out of it, because it's not every day you actually find a group of guys that are willing to do more than just talk about the dream and whatnot, but actually go forth and do it and stay true to it. You know, 3 years in, there's 3 years ago, I mean, you can't imagine being where you're at right now 3 years ago. So it'll be fun to see where you guys are for 3 years from now.
Yeah.
We're excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's been a good time already.
Yeah.
And that'll continue. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. All right, guys.
We got a long way we got a lot of years hopefully ahead of us on this. So
Yeah.
we're excited.
Well, it starts with tomorrow morning, and we're going to go, and you're going to put a guide on for these two veterans on the Tennessee Veterans Hunt, and you better call them in. You better figure out that magic Drake whistle or whatever it is for tomorrow.
My goal is just to get you there.
We'll figure it out when we get there.
That's the first part.
Look at the iridescent when you hit look at these little green back here too.
got it back. For a guide, you gave us 2 birds.
That's all I got.
I appreciate the invite, but you don't get a tip.
Hey, some days you get them, some days you don't.
That's Tennessee duck hunt.